Again, monks, a monk abides contemplating phenomena as phenomena in respect of the Four Noble Truths. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, today, once again, we are meeting this noble group of friends to practice mindfulness, and we have already spent about 1.5 hours practicing it. Now it is time for us to provide some support to what we do, which we call supportive factors. So one of the supportive factors is the listening supportive factor, and then we have the discussion supportive factor. So for the listening supportive factor, as you all know, we have selected one discourse, which is known as the Four Foundations of Mindfulness. And in that discourse, as the word suggests, there are four bases, four reference points, four areas where we can be mindful of. The four areas are the body, the feelings, the mind, and the phenomena. And of these four areas, we have already discussed about 3.5, if not 3.75, right? So we have discussed how to be mindful of our body, discussed how to be mindful of our feelings, and then the mind, and then the subtle layers of the physicality and mentality, which is discussed in the phenomena section. So in phenomena section, what we just completed was the 7 factors of enlightenment. So I want to reiterate there, when we practice mindfulness, and if we don't have any particular object or target that we are striving at, you become mindful just because it's the way to live, then what you are developing is the enlightenment factors. You don't hinder the gradual development, gradual progress, the gradual fruit-bearing capability of being mindful. So the fruit that the mindfulness tree will bear are the 7 factors of enlightenment. So when you have these 7 factors of enlightenment in phenomena section of the 4 foundations of mindfulness, the Blessed One says, even these 7 factors are not permanent. They are not stable. They will not stay forever. And when they appear, you know that they are within you. And when they disappear, just because of mindfulness, you will be aware that they are not. And then you will be aware when they arise again. And there will have instances where you observe yourself that they are coming to its climax, culmination. So it's also a rolling thing, not something which is fixed, not something that is gained forever, right? So since in phenomena section, you get your mindset to accept this changing nature, this fluctuating nature, what you will develop is stronger resistance or stronger non-reactional capability. As a result, the last item of the 7 factors of enlightenment is equanimity. Even that equanimity, you see in phenomena section, even that doesn't stay forever. Your equanimity, your equipoised mind, you lose sometimes. But since you lose it, since things are not permanent, you have the ability to gain it again. And you see this, this is changing all the time. So you become equanimous of the loss or fluctuation of the equanimity as well. So that is not really equanimity. That is huge knowledge, huge understanding, huge wisdom. Understanding, accepting that equanimity itself is changing, is doubling the equanimity, and that acceptance is a wisdom, right? So when you have this ability to understand that everything is changing, everything is not under your control, then you have the sense to see that if you poke your fingers in, you're asking for trouble. So that realization comes, that wisdom comes when the 7 factors of enlightenment are observed with its changing nature. So this is why in the next section, in the stanza or in the paragraph I just recited, it says, again, monks, a monk abides contemplating phenomena as phenomena in respect of the 4 noble truths. So we know the 4 noble truths are truth of suffering, the cause of suffering, and the cessation of suffering, and the path to the cessation. So those are the 4 noble truths. So today, I'm not going to talk any of these 4 noble truths. I'm going to give an introduction to what noble means. And of course, we have the literal meaning. The literal meaning of noble is supreme or advanced, right? But in the teaching of the Buddha, there is a bit of a different meaning, or rather different meanings, in the sense this is the highest wisdom that one will achieve. So it is the highest knowledge that one can gain, right? So this is what these noble truths are, the 4 things that the Blessed One has found after spending so many aeons of perfections. So he has spent, it says, Sara Sankhya Kalpalaksha. I don't know how to quantify it. It's billions and billions of aeons, right? So just to give you an idea of what an aeon is, suppose there is a rock, for example, in today's terms, 1 mile long, 1 mile width, 1 mile height, and 1 cubic mile. In other words, such a rock, you take a silk piece of cloth and keep rubbing, for so many eons, and the Buddha says the rock will depreciate away after rubbing with the silk cloth, but the aeon still will go on. So that long is an aeon, right? So he has completed the perfections to understand this, to realize this, to become Buddha for so many eons, right? Hundreds and hundreds, thousands of eons. And in those eons, what he did was he perfected certain conditions necessary to be Buddha. So there are 10 such conditions, and he has perfected those things, and they are the basic things: generosity, morality, renunciation, insight, energy, patience, truthfulness, resolution, loving kindness, and equanimity are the ones he has perfected even before becoming Buddha. So the result of that is understanding finally this 4 noble truths. So to explain this Four Noble Truths, once he became Buddha, and he initially thought that nobody will be able to understand this because it's such a complex thing, and it is very hard for people to realize that after giving up your sensual pleasures, after giving up your breath, after going through the feeling, after going through the mind, after going even beyond the mind, what you will finally find is some sort of suffering, right? So people are looking for happiness, and if you say towards the end or at the end, all what you have is unhappiness, all what you have is suffering, nobody will come, right? But then a thought occurred to Buddha, and not only that, if someone understands, after reducing the suffering from the sensual pleasures, what you do when you come out of the sensual pleasures is you give away, you get away from the suffering that is arising from the sensual pleasures. And when you go out of your breath, or in other words, when your breath settles down in the practice, when it disappears, what you depreciate or what disappears is a suffering that may arise from having the breath. And if you go through the feeling, and if you become mindful of the feeling, and especially painful feeling, once it fades away, what it very clearly takes away, give up, is the suffering from that. And similarly, the mind. So in other words, you reduce, you depreciate, you give away, or you keep on giving away the suffering arising from the particular thing you have. So after reducing suffering to such a small level, such a low level, such a deep level, still suffering will be there. And accepting that you have given up so much of suffering to this suffering that you can bear, then it's a wisdom. So he labeled it as a noble truth, not only just noble truth. After becoming Buddha, he wanted to preach this to someone, and when he thought, okay, there will be people who could understand it, and it is not that there will be people who could understand then, there are still people who can understand it. So it was a very wise decision by him. In the second thought, when he was looking for people to preach, and his first teachers all had gone, and there was no one, and all of them had died. So then he found the four ascetics with whom he lived just before becoming Buddha. They went to the five ascetics and preached them this discourse called the wheel of Dhamma in motion, or setting the wheel of Dhamma in motion, which we call Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. And in that sutta, when he was introducing these four foundations of mindfulness, he kept on saying at the beginning and even at the end, for each of the four truths, he was saying, Ubbe Ananusutesu Dhammesu. Ubbe Ananusutesu Dhammesu means a Dhamma, or teaching, or preaching, or phenomena that you have never heard before. For Four Noble Truths, he was saying that 8 times, one at the beginning and one at the end. So when he was reciting Ubbe Ananusutesu Dhammesu, the entire universe shook, it seems, and all the living beings in the universe, especially when you go in the higher up in the realms, they have been living for long time. Unlike in the human world, they say in the canon, they live for so many millions of years, and they have been thinking that they are permanent because they have been living for such a long time. And when Buddha comes and says everything is suffering and everything is impermanent, he was saying Ubbe Ananusutesu Dhammesu, something which you have never heard. They were having shocks, they were having nightmares. So that is the strength of the Four Noble Truths, because if you forget about the other beings in the universe, when we hear that, how many of us are ready to understand that everything that you have will have only suffering? There will have a slight satisfaction from it, but majority is suffering. To get that satisfaction, you will have to continuously suffer, and people are happy to suffer. So therefore, there will not have many people practicing Dhamma. Anyway, my topic today is to explain what are we. We call it Noble Truths, Four Noble Truths, Chaturarya Satya. Chatu means not Chatura sitting there. Chatu means four, and Arya means noble, Satya means the truth. So Chaturarya Satya. So my attempt today is to explain to the best of my ability what Arya means, what noble means. For that, I have selected a couple of suttas, and one is called Anenja Sutta, which means Arya Putakjana Sutta, which means a noble disciple. Okay, I'll proceed with my mobile without the video, if that is all right.
Should I turn off my video?
No, that's okay. Others, I'll be just talking too much. So we will take these suttas and see the meaning of Arya, or meaning of noble. The first one, Anenja Sutta or Arya Pratakjana Sutta, or the Noble Disciple Discourse, which is available in Numerical Discourses, the chapter of number 3, so 3 numerical discourses are arranged in such a way where you have one factor have been included in chapter 1. If they are discussing 2 points, they have categorized under chapter 2 or chapter for 2s. And then there is a chapter for 3s, there is a chapter for 4s, like that. So this particular one is found in chapter for 3s. And in that, the discourse is trying to explain the difference between unlearned commoner and the learned disciple, right? So the two terms themselves are a bit confusing sometimes for those who have not heard it. The unlearned commoner means one who has not come into contact with Dhamma, one who has not come into contact with Buddha's teaching. They don't know what's happening within themselves. They don't know what is happening in the physical and mental process of human beings, and as a result, they just are going on the rat race that is available in the society, and they are called unlearned commoners. And these unlearned commoners are not uncommon. They are everywhere in our society, starting from the kings to the pauper. We have only 99.9% are unlearned commoners. And learned disciple means those who have come into contact with Dhamma, and in one or the other way, they are trying to practice the real teaching of the Buddha. And this, when I explained the word unlearned commoner, I said those who are usually available in the society. But it is going beyond that. Unlearned commoner, according to this particular sutta, the Blessed One says there will have people, there will have beings who have practiced meditation for a long time and who have gained real concentration in their practice. And as a result, they may go on to the realms where they can live 20 eons or 40 eons or 60 eons in divine realms. and after practicing meditation. But still, even if they spend such a long time, depending on their achievement, this particular discourse says, if once they finish their time in those realms, there is no guarantee that they will not be born as an animal. There is no guarantee that they will be born as a hungry ghost, or in sometimes the hell as well. So therefore, the unlearned commoners are not just people who are in the sensual realm only. They will have unlearned commoners even in the spiritual circle. How that happens is, if you say, for example, if you are practicing transcendental meditation or only concentration meditation, and that concentration meditation can take you to very high levels. And once they are taken to high levels, they will be born in divine realms to live for long times, because they gather so much of spiritual energy to go into such realms. But once that energy is over, there is no guarantee where they will be born next. So that's a very dangerous, risky risk in our existence. So once when Buddha was going on alms round with Venerable Ananda, who was his assistant, he had a smile. And then when Buddha smiles, they say that there is a light coming, because he doesn't usually smile as such. There is a light coming from his teeth. And Venerable Ananda has seen this light white ray. And then Venerable Ananda has asked, why did you smile? Then Blessed One has shown an array of ants, and black ants, big black ants. And he has said, there is no ant in this line who is not being a wheel-turning monarch, right? So wheel-turning monarch, according to the explanation in the discourses about the universe, and he's the one who has the ability to rule the world, right? So there are certain capabilities he gets when he's born, and all these ants in the line, they have become a wheel-turning monarch. But once their meritorious deeds are over, as a wheel-turning monarch, they are being born as an ant. So it's such a dangerous existence we have. So therefore, Blessed One says, even if you practice meditation, it is risky unless you have the right attitude towards it, which means unless you consider that the mindfulness to be kept in front, that the mindfulness should be kept to the fore, then only you get into Buddha's teaching. Because before Buddha, meditation was that. But in that meditation, they did not go to this realization of Four Noble Truths, because they were holding on to that happiness, that gentle or the very, very fine happiness they get when they go deeper into the meditation. So they were clinging on to that. And as a result, depending on the clinging, depending on the clarity of their practice, they go on to very, very high realms of divine beings and then be there for a long time. And once that time is over, it's like you finish when you go on a holiday, you take so much money. And once that is over, you will come back. So it's the same thing even here. Once it is over, you will be thrown into nobody knows where. So that happens only if you cling on to anything. So what the mindfulness, keeping the mindfulness to the fore, teaches you is not to cling on to anything, but simply be aware. So that's the difference between transcendental meditation and the mindfulness practice that we are doing. So therefore, to that extent, even if you meditate, there is a chance of you becoming an unlearned commoner. So just to avoid that only, we have this discussion. From the discussion, teacher will be able to ensure that you will not fall into the category of unlearned commoner. So the Blessed One has explained in one of the discourses the qualities of an unlearned commoner. So the unlearned commoner, there are 6 qualities he has given. They are, one is Ariyanang Adassavi. Ariyanang Adassavi means those who don't see noble disciples of the Buddha. They are not clever in going and seeing. So, there are some beliefs in the world today. Seeing a Buddha's disciple or seeing a monk is considered as an unauspicious scene. It's not only anywhere, even in Sri Lanka itself, there are Buddhists who say seeing a monk early morning is very unauspicious because a monk is basically a beggar. So seeing a beggar in the morning, they don't like. So there are some people with such strong beliefs, such strong view, and they are not clever in seeing them at least. So that's a quality, characteristic of an unlearned commoner. And the second one that is given there is Arya Dhammassa Akovido, which means unskilled in Buddha's teaching. So he may see a noble disciple of the Buddha, a monk, and the monk will be teaching him, but he is not skilled enough. He will be saying hundreds and hundreds of excuses why he can't do it. I have a headache today, I have work tomorrow, and my wife is pregnant, or I will have to do this, do that, and lots of excuses will be given. Although the teaching is there, although he hears the teaching, he will be saying, he will be Arya Dhammassa Akovido, unskilled in the teaching. He doesn't get into the teaching. And there is the next quality that is given there is Arya Dhamme Avinito. Arya Dhamme Avinito means you practice, but although you practice, you don't practice it in a disciplined way. It's undisciplined in the practice of the Buddha's teaching. And there is, say, the teacher will say you do walking and sitting proportionately, in equal proportion. He will be doing the way he wants. He will be doing walking 10 minutes and sitting half an hour. Or he will be doing walking half an hour, sitting 10 minutes. Or he won't do it regularly. And he doesn't provide reports. So these are just few examples that come to my mind. And he will not be disciplined enough in the practice of the teaching, because when you practice, you will have to discipline yourself. Unless you discipline yourself, it is very difficult to come out of the grief and strong desire we have towards things. And unless you discipline yourself, you will not be going to deeper layers of your physicality and the mentality. So therefore, we need to have some discipline when we practice. Discipline simply in the sense, you will have to determine yourself and work according to a timetable and gradually increase the time you practice and gradually associate more and more noble friends. And then you become more and more disciplined into the teaching. So if you are not disciplined, then you will have a character of or characteristics of an unlearned commoner. But these are not to discriminate people, but these are you should hear these things. When you hear these things, we have an opportunity to now to correct ourselves. It is not to discriminate and put people down, or just to compare and say, oh, I'm good and you are bad. That's not the purpose. So that becomes a mirror for us to see our own face and our own things that we do. So the next quality that is given is Sappurisanam Adassavi. So the earlier one was Aryanam Adassavi, Aryadhamma Sako Vido Aryadhamya Vinito. The next one is going with Sappurusanam. Sappurusanam means they are not Aryans, they are not noble ones, but they are trying to become noble ones. They are in the right path, right? Wise people, right? So who don't, and Sappurisanam Adasavi means are those who don't see those who try to walk on the path, right? Say we have friends, and all of you have brought friends here, and they come for one day and they vanish, and they don't want to associate anymore, see us anymore, because we are trying to walk on the path and they don't want to have our association. So they don't have that quality and they become therefore unlearned commoners. Everyone is doing that. It is easy, but they fall into that everyone's category and they will not be able to become Satpurisa or the wise people, and therefore they lose the opportunity of becoming noble ones. And the other quality is Sappurisa Dhammasa Akovido. Sappurisa Dhammasa means Arya Dhammasa Akovido means unskilled in Buddha's teaching. And here they don't try the path to become noble ones. Sappurisa Dhammasa means they will Sappurisa. The wise people will say, when you earn something, don't use the whole thing for your benefit. Just look after your partners with that money, and just look after your family. Look after if there is any friend who is unable to meet ends, just help him. In general, become generous and not to think of yourself only. That is the starting point of Sappurisa Dhamma, wise people's Dhamma. Become generous. And then you try to become more virtuous, right? So all of us have been doing all nasty things. We have been taking liquor, and we have been taking intoxications. We have been maybe sometimes killing animals as well, and maybe even killing a mosquito or a cockroach is a killing. And we may have been not big robbers, but we may have robbed things, and we may have stolen things, and we may have been lying to people, and we may have had sexual misconduct, right? So when there is one partner, or you may have associated with another, having a relationship with another. So these things may have happened. So Sappurisa, or the wise people, will tell it is not a good thing to behave in that manner. We should have some sort of discipline in our physical and verbal behavior, and that discipline in our physical and verbal behavior is called morality or virtue. So those who are considered as unlearned disciples, they don't want to try that path, let alone practicing mindfulness. They don't want to take the first few steps at least, right? So, but still the Blessed One says, doesn't matter. Okay, if no need to be generous if you don't want, and don't be moral as well, virtuous as well if you can't, but just come and practice. Just keep the mindfulness to the fore, and then that will pave the way for you to realize yourself and become more generous and come out of the bad things you are doing physically and verbally. And when someone says that, and they will not like it, they will not be skilled in coming and trying the mindfulness. So if you practice mindfulness, there is answer for many things, if not for everything. And that is what Buddha says. Mindfulness is the chief in all the phenomena. So we have such a strong mental capacity within us. And those who are trying the path will come and say, okay, hey, we will do this, but they will not be skilled enough. So we call them Sappurisa Dhammassa Akovido. They don't want to come to the teaching. And then Sappurisa Dhamme Avinito. And some people may come, but they will not have a discipline in that. They will not do it the way the wise man says. They will be doing in haphazard way, the way they want. And especially that happens with young people, because they're I mean, I'm not just excluding the older people, but it's mainly with young people because their aspirations are different, their biochemical processes are different. So therefore, even without their knowledge, this discipline may not set in, right? But still, if you keep on doing what you can do, you will be gradually turning from unlearned commoner to a learned disciple. So these are the characteristics of unlearned commoner, and that is what is mentioned in the discourse. They are giving the difference between unlearned commoner and the learned disciple. So therefore now it is very easy to understand who is unlearned disciple, or the learned disciple. The learned disciple is those who try the opposite of what we just discussed. And if they have faith in the significance of mindfulness, and that is the pinnacle, and that is the driving force of all the 6 things that I have just mentioned. If there is some faith in mindfulness, that person is now a learned disciple. And if he starts practicing mindfulness, not just mindfulness, but to keep the mindfulness to the fore, and then he is a learned disciple. So therefore, those who are here, all of us have been practicing mindfulness and are practicing mindfulness, not only in sitting and walking, but in our day-to-day lives as well, as much as we can. Not 100%, but as much as we can. Then you become a learned disciple. You become a Sappurusha, although we are not noble ones yet, but we become a Sappurusha, or a wise group of people who try to go beyond this physical and mental process phenomena that drags us onto continuous suffering. And the discourse says such learned disciples and their quality and their birth, their intent are always heading towards one thing, which is the ultimate realization, which we call nirvana, right? So nirvana is not that group. When I Google nirvana, there is a musical group that pops up. So it's not that. Nirvana means the ultimate realization that the Blessed One is explaining, where we can reach. So the Blessed One says the learned disciples, they always aspire to reach that ultimate realization, and what they do, anything will have that quality of getting the highest wisdom. And by birth, the discourse says they are ready to do that. So such people will get to the Arya Magga. Arya Magga means the path of the noble ones. And in the path of the noble ones, in that particular discourse, the Blessed One is stating there are 3 basic things he's giving in the discourse. The three basic things are to identify the path. So you can see whether you are in the path if you know that you are following this. Of that, number one is whether you are mindful. If you are mindful, all these three things will fall in line. If not today, tomorrow. If not tomorrow, next week. It will gradually happen. These things will not happen overnight. There is no need to stop the way you live, but just become mindful. When you are mindful, and that changes the way you work, that changes the way you speak, that changes the way you think, right? So therefore, everything that I'm going to mention now will fall into line. So therefore, the most important thing in Arya Marga is to achieve nirvana is to keep the mindfulness to the fore. So what is given in this Arya Marga Sutta or the Noble Path discourse is the Blessed One says, refrain from eight things that lay people can follow, right? So they are called the sila or the virtue. We call it 8 precepts for lay people. There are 8 precepts. There are 8 refraining things that lay people can do, and you observe those eight precepts, right? So those 8. Now, basically, when we start the practice, these particular sessions, we observe 5 precepts, right? So you can extend the same thing for 8 precepts, and the 8 precepts are refrain from killing, refrain from what is not given, refrain from sexual misconduct, and refrain from lying, refrain from idle talk, refrain from slander, refrain from foul words, and then the last one is Samma Ajiva, means you will have a right livelihood. Right livelihood means you will not be killing animals for living, say like a fisherman. You will not be selling arms, and you will not be selling intoxications, right? So those, if you say do a normal job, excluding any of those things, then you have the right ajiva or the right livelihood. So having these 8 precepts, observing these 8 precepts in your day-to-day life, and then you refrain from certain bad or I should not say bad, certain unethical physical and verbal behaviors. And when you do that, that will provide a basis for us to come out of or overcome covetousness and grief. Because if you don't maintain your precepts, if you don't maintain your virtue, that will give you grief. If you kill an animal, if you steal something, or if you talk badly to someone, you will regret yourself, right? So that is a grief in itself, and you may be doing that simply because of covetousness. Covetousness means the strong desire for things, strong sensual desire, or not. For that only you may be breaking your virtues. So if you keep your virtues, so that will provide a basis for you to come out of grief and strong desire. And living in that manner is the right view. Right view means you understand that if you live a better life, if you behave a better life, and if you behave well, you will have a better life, and if you behave bad, you will not have a better life. So that is the starting point of the right view. So one who has the right view as I said at the beginning, become virtuous and look after everybody. And they look after not only the ones close to you, they will look after even their teachers, like monks. And that's a very strong right view. And they believe that after birth, if I am born, then I will be going to the right place. If I do a bad thing, or if I don't behave virtuously, then you will go to a lower realm. So you will have such right view. And if you don't have that right view, there is no need for you to observe 8 precepts. So if one is observing 8 precepts, that is an indication that that person is having the right view. So these are some of the qualities that that a noble disciple will have, or some qualities that someone who wants to become a noble disciple will have. So the path to become a noble disciple is minimum refrain from doing unaccepted physical and verbal deeds, and overcome covetousness and grief, and have the right view. So if you have those 3 things, and you are on the right path. So hope I was able to give some understanding of what arya, or the noble means in this particular talk. So wish you, may you be able to see the noble truths for yourself, practicing mindfulness as we are practicing now. Blessings of the Triple Gem to everyone. So I conclude the talk here. Now we can take any questions if you have.
Everyone, Saranai.
Everyone, Saranai.